Hi, everyone. Thank you for choosing to attend our session today. This is Food and Data for Better Lives, Modernizing the Houston Food Bank's Data Stack with DBT. My name is Ben Herndon-Miller. I've worn a few different hats during my time working with the food bank, but today I wear the hat of data engineer after joining full-time in January of this year. I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Susan Quiros and Erwin Christel, who are both data analysts at HFB. I also want to give Erwin a quick shout out as he is now the reigning DBT Coalesce Poker Tournament champion. Let's get a little round of applause for Erwin. Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about the story of data at the Houston Food Bank, and specifically how DBT has played a key role in our organization's data maturity journey. Our presentation begins with a little bit about HFB and the history of the data team. Next, we're going to go over how COVID-19 was a huge catalyst for change within the organization, specifically in regards to data. From there, we're going to discuss how DBT has been a critical tool for our team to address the problems associated with this growth. Afterwards, Erwin and Susan will both share how DBT has empowered them to solve some of the most important data problems we faced as an organization. We hope you enjoy the presentation and find us for questions afterwards if we run out of time. What is HFB and what do we do? HFB is the largest food bank in the country by both size and distribution. We serve over 140 million meals in 18 Southeast Texas counties. To do this, we work with a network of over 1,600 community partners that serve the over 1 million food insecure population in the region. This is all possible due to the support of Feeding America and our funders. Its network of food banks serves over 40 million food insecure Americans each year. If any part of this presentation inspires you, resonates with you, we encourage you to get involved and support your local Feeding America food bank. History of data at HFB. So in the history of data at HFB, we kind of like to think of two eras. One is before DBT and one is after DBT. In the era before DBT, data and IT were a single department with only 2 dedicated data staff. The data architecture was a quote-unquote data mesh without any singular system to tie the pieces together logically. This resulted in a status quo of departments tracking their own KPIs and spreadsheets, data transformations being stored in all sorts of different locations, and there being many manual monthly processes that are required to perform our reporting duties. This resulted in the data team not only being able to support basic data functions across the organization and spending most of their time preparing these required monthly reports. It was hard to innovate or use data beyond just basic functions. And this is a future that DBT helped change. All right. Cue the beginning of 2020. This is where I enter the picture and my relationship with the Houston Food Bank started. I recently had joined forces with some other coworkers of mine to start a small data consulting firm aimed at serving the needs of nonprofit organizations and the public sector in Houston, Texas. Our team began to work with the Houston Food Bank in early 2020 to help supplement the capabilities of this undersized data team. A few weeks into our first project, the COVID-19 pandemic began, and all of the projects that we had been working on all of a sudden didn't really matter in comparison to the scale of the problem we were dealing with. The executive team of the food bank was in need of a rapid response from all branches of the organization. And this is kind of where we realized we needed to move quickly. So even though at the time there were over 200 reports, there was not a single dashboard that allowed the executive leadership team at HFB to view major operational KPIs in one place. Data were in silos all across the organization. Once COVID hit, this was no longer an acceptable reality. Because of this, me and my team at the time were asked to develop a dashboard that would allow the executive leadership team to view all of these different metrics in a centralized location in real time. We had to act quickly and spun up some ad hoc infrastructure to support this project. In the first couple of weeks, I remember sitting in my bedroom, running the pipelines on my laptop and manually monitoring to make sure that all the data was updated and accurate every day, And this obviously is not a sustainable solution, but we had established a proof of concept, and the Houston Food Bank began to see the value in having infrastructure to deliver better business intelligence. This, along with other factors, helped lead HFB to commit to an organizational digital transformation and migration to cloud services. This transformation was critical in our ability to implement a unified data architecture. Even though we had already started to build key integrations and develop a data warehouse, we were still struggling to figure out how to manage and automate the transforming of data once we had it in our data warehouse, a problem I'm sure many of you are very familiar with. We found ourselves either trying to wrap SQL queries in our Python code or embedding significant amounts of code in our BI tools. This was the state of our infrastructure for a little over a year. This was not great, but it worked, kind of. This led to poor monitoring, auditability, and ultimately performance in our dashboards and reports. We knew that there was a better solution out there. And luckily, late in 2021, we discovered the release of an open source software that offered a solution to these issues, and we never looked back. We migrated all of our queries to dbt core, which allowed us to deploy and orchestrate our data models in conjunction with our integration infrastructure. Most notably, almost all of our SQL code was under version control for the first time, empowering us to implement software engineering best practices for our data pipelines. I'm going to hand it off to Erwin now.
All right. Thank you, Ben. So initially, we only used dbt core, which was only leveraged by engineers. So analysts were still storing queries in BI tools and were unable to effectively leverage the dbt core product. However, in 2023, dbt cloud was implemented, and our hopefully final migration begins to the cloud product. Migrating to the cloud product was a big step because analysts are very comfortable with the interface and are able to develop and deploy SQL code without the help of the engineers. Data lineage features and dbt's best practices guide allow us to clean up our organizational data models, improve storage and processing efficiency within our data warehouse, and increase visibility and data pipeline monitoring, improve our ability to build trust with organizational stakeholders. So as of today, our data team of 8, which includes engineers, analysts, and other specialists, use dbt cloud to manage all data transformations in our data warehouse, which now supports 30+ integrations, 70+ reports, that deliver 180+ metrics to stakeholders all across the organization. So on this next slide, you can see a visualization of how our data pipeline is integrated with dbt. So first, we have our data sources over there on the left. We have applications such as NetSuite, Warelinks, SurveyMonkey, databases such as our Microsoft SQL Server, and then we have files such as Google Sheets and other .csv files. So the data from these sources gets pulled into our Amazon Redshift data warehouse where dbt sits on top. We use dbt specifically dbt cloud to do our data transformations using what's basically SQL with some Jinja and YAML thrown in, as I'm sure all of you know. As an aside, our dbt cloud is also integrated seamlessly with our GitLab for version controls, which, as Ben mentioned, huge deal. And most notably, it allows Ben to review our merge requests with ease and see all the changes that we make. So at any rate, once the data is in the right shape, we load the data into our various dashboards, and we have a lot of them, hundreds of them. The majority of our reports are in Retool, but we also use Power BI, Tableau, and Domo. And as a data analyst, building and maintaining these data models and building and maintaining these dashboards is a majority of what we do. So naturally, the analysts, including myself, we spend a lot of time in dbt cloud. So let me give you an example of how this whole process with an example of a project that I worked on, the volunteer and monetary donor matching. So first, I say monetary because we do receive literal metric tons of product donations regularly, like food, teaching supplies, hygiene products, stuff like that, but that's tracked completely separately from our monetary donations. And so for this project, we were only concerned with the monetary donations and the volunteering. So first, a little background. Our fundraisers want to see the story of individual major donors, right? Which is individuals that donated over X amount of money and see both their donating and volunteering behavior in a single place. This was challenging because this data is kept in a number of different systems. We have 3 different volunteer systems, 1 donor system, and they do not integrate at all. So the volunteer systems do not talk to the donor system does not talk to the volunteer system, and the 3 volunteer systems don't even talk to each other. So basically, what I had to do was first actually integrate the volunteer data with the other volunteer data, and then integrate that volunteer data with the donor data, and then build a dashboard that pulls from that data model. So overview of the volunteer data. As I mentioned, there's 3 volunteer management systems with absolutely no integrations. And so the first thing I had to do was integrate these systems, right? So a single volunteers model where each record is a volunteer, a single shifts model where each record is a shift, et cetera, et cetera. And so with these 3 systems, that resulted in 16 source tables. For the monetary donor data, it was a single donor management system. It has an awful lot of data in there. So, and it's literally like every single monetary donation to the Houston Food Bank since 1980. So that's over 1.7 million gifts, AKA transactions, over 400,000 constituents, AKA donors. And in 2022, the system was actually overhauled. So that resulted in practically in, like DBT in 2 source systems, even though it's like one donor management system, like one for historic data and one for current data, and that's 19 source tables. And so on this next slide, just to illustrate the complexity of this data modeling, you can see the DAG. And here, you can see the full upstream DAG of the main individual donors model, where each record is an individual donor. Now, for the dashboard that I ended up creating, it did end up using more than just this one model, but I consider this the main model because all the other models are left joined onto this one, right? So this DAG was produced using the lineage feature, which, if you're not familiar, is a feature in dbt Cloud. It's incredibly useful, super easy to use. You just open the model in dbt Cloud, click lineage, type in your lineage command, which you can see there on the left, which, by the way, I've been calling it our fundraising department, but the official title is actually our development department, but I thought that'd be confusing since we're talking about developing models. So yeah, that's why it's development individuals, GR for golden record. So anyway, at the top half of the DAG, you can see the volunteer information. That's all that volunteer data in that top half. The bottom half is the donor information. And then on the right, you can see those 2 models joining together to create that main individual donor model. So in the darkish green on the far left, you can see the source tables that I mentioned previously, and then immediately downstream from those, in accordance with DBT best practices, are the staging models with the proper STG prefix, and then we have some intermediate models and other March models that all eventually join to form the final model. And also, like down there, like at the very bottom in the light green, you can see a seed model, which is a very useful feature of DBT, but my colleague Susan will be talking more about that, so I'm just going to leave that there for now. So on this slide, you can see how the volunteer model was joined with the donor model using dbt Cloud. So other than a little bit of Jinja to just reference the models, you'll notice that's all in SQL. So it's definitely true what DBT says. All you need to know is a little bit of SQL, and you can dive right in and start effectively using DBT. So just a little bit about the logic here, which I'm sure if you're all familiar with SQL, you could figure it out for yourselves. But like real quick, so first and last name. So first name has to match exactly to first name. Last name has to match exactly to last name, and then either date of birth, email, phone, or zip codes has to match, and then you join the 2, and it's a single record, right? So yeah, it shows how the task of getting donor data and volunteer data into a single model was accomplished. Now, of course, a lot more modeling took place prior to this step, particularly like cleaning up all these fields, like the names and addresses, things like that. But this is the point where like all this stuff like really comes together. So why should anybody care about this, right? Like, why does anyone at the Houston Food Bank care that I did this? Well, that's because it allowed me to create this dashboard. And this is currently being used by our fundraising team, AKA the stakeholders. So this tab of the dashboard shows individuals by name, which is what those gray boxes actually cover up because it is personally identifying information which we don't want to share publicly. But if you're an HFB fundraisers, you would see people's names there. And so it basically, shows a timeline of people that meet certain criteria with the filters in the top right. Like each dot, it's a donation event. The little gray diamonds are a volunteer event. And so it's a really easy way to just see a quick overview of the individual donors that you're interested in and their behaviors over whatever set time you have. Now, I'm going to skip over the second tab, but this third tab is what I really want to talk about because this is interesting because of the utility that our fundraising department got out of it. So as you can see, this shows the donating and volunteering information for individuals. Again, like the names are covered up, like latest volunteer date, lifetime donations, etc. Of particular note is the fundraiser name column, right? Which again, this is people's names, but these are the fundraisers that work for the Houston Food Bank that are assigned to particular individual donors. And yeah, and so because we have these high-value donors, we'll either have particular fundraisers that work for HFB assigned to them or not assigned to them. And so I remember one day, a couple of months after I initially delivered this dashboard, I get pulled into a meeting with the director of our fundraising department and two other high-level fundraisers. And what they were looking for was essentially like the low-hanging fruit of these individual major donors, which in this context, it meant high-value individual donors that either do not have a fundraiser assigned or could use some more attention. So if, for example, we know they have the capacity to donate, they've donated $50,000 5 years ago, haven't donated since. That's the kind of person that, like, hey, we want to pay a little bit more attention to, so hopefully increase their giving, right? And so using this dashboard, it was easy to see which donors do or do not have fundraisers assigned, determine which of the donors without a fundraiser assigned we want to assign a fundraiser to based on certain key stats, a couple of which you can see here, and determine which donors might need a little bit more attention, like I just talked about. Now, this meeting that we had took like maybe 30 minutes, and in that like short meeting, we were able to identify 10 or 15 or so high-value individuals that either didn't have a fundraiser assigned and should have a fundraiser assigned, or did have a fundraiser assigned, but just we weren't giving them the attention that they deserve. And they really do deserve this attention because like a good chunk of our operating budget does come from these donations. And even a single high-value individual donor can make a real difference, right? Because you can see there's a latest gifts size column. And so you can see that some of these people, like they make a single donation that's $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000. So even a single one of these is like, it's a big deal, right? And even though it's like not shown here, we do actually have several individual donors that have lifetime donations in excess of even $1 million. So anything that makes it easier for our fundraisers to see the information about these donors with up-to-date live information, or I should say quasi-live because this is updated once a day, is definitely useful to the organization as a whole. So that's all I wanted to talk about, and so I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Susan.
Thank you so much, Erwin. Okay, let's go ahead and review example number 2, automating metrics for grant applications and reporting. In this example, we're going to see how DBT has enabled the Houston Food Bank data team to consolidate key metrics at the partner level, increase end users' confidence in reported metrics, and maximize data analysts' time. So background information. The Houston Food Bank has an extensive network, over 1,600 community partners. Those partners report distribution and client data in different systems. Again, the systems are not integrated, and we don't have a foreign key to be able to link records at the partner level. However, the data team was receiving a good number of requests from our fundraising team regarding these metrics. And the data team wanted to come up with a solution that first could integrate the system and generate the metrics needed. Second, eliminate the manual process that data analysts were doing whenever these metrics were requested. And third, increase the data quality and reliability. So we put into action 2 strategies. The first one, we wanted to create an intermediate table to be able to link these records from these different systems. We knew that the key for us was engaging with these subject matter experts, right? Those who handle the data on a day-to-day basis, basically our programs. So we can generate a mapping of partners from each system. Then second, we wanted to use DBT to store this business logic. And then once we can create this model, and that model is materialized in our data warehouse, we can use it to then feed one of our BI tools and just create a report so end users can have just the accessibility to download and just see the metrics on their own, and the metrics are going to be updated on a daily basis. So this is just an overview of our data pipeline architecture, how the data is moved and transformed from one source to another. I just wanted to highlight here that NetSuite is our distribution data, and Link2Feed and SurveyMonkey our client data. So this is just, again, one of the questions for us as a team was, we're going to be storing this intermediate table and also just make sure that our data analysts would have access to this information, right? So we just found a solution with the DBT using the DBT seeds features. Why? Because like DBT seeds are files containing static data that can be loaded, transformed, and referenced in your models as any other data sources. So here we're just highlighting how we use this client system mapping seed and just reference that in downstream model. And just an overview of the structure. Of course, you are seeing here like unique information of the primary key from our partners in each system. Let's talk about the impact. What mattered to us as a Houston Food Bank is the impact that we can have with all of this work. So for the first time, we were able to present these metrics to the entire organization. So now they can see the different categories of food distributed by month and also have access to the number of households and neighbors served. This is really powerful for us. And also, they have access to see what platform they're using to report this client data. End users have the flexibility to download this table and just filter that by month, year, and also by the partner name. Our fundraising team is benefit a lot from this report. Now they can submit their progress reports because whenever we are awarded a grant, we have certain things that we need to submit and report back on. And also, they are able to pursue more funding opportunities because now they have access to these metrics. Additionally, our partner services team, like whenever we have a partnership, of course, we have a data sharing agreement where partners are required to report client data on a monthly basis, depending on if they are receiving, food from us. So partner services they come here, they just filter by either the partner name or the month and year, and they can see who is reporting and who is not, and then addressing with the partner any issues that they are probably, going through that are not allowing them to report the information that we need. And I'm very proud of this. This is huge for us. So just being able to map our service area, we need to know where we are going. We need to know how we can allocate resources more efficiently. That's crucial for the work that we do. So for that reason, we are also able to have other layers of information, like food insecurity and poverty rates. You are also being able to see here that the black dots represent our partners. We were not able to do that previously. And just have different attributes from our partners, like knowing these specific partners, what other programs they are enrolled in with us, and knowing the number of visits as a whole, and also knowing the number of food that we are putting into that specific zip code or that specific area. So again, this has helped us, our programs, to allocate resources more efficiently and also just increase our presence in the areas that we are supposed to be, doing the work. Additionally, funding opportunities. In fiscal year 2024, the community level partner metrics generated $4 million in 3 different grants. Again, huge for us. This has helped us to increase the partners' capacity and just being able to fund new strategies to meet our neighbors where they are at. I mean, not all the needs are the same, and we need to be taking these different strategies to approach those needs. We have come to the final example for today's presentation, example number 3. So understanding the neighbor journey. This was also really interesting because the Community Assistance Program team, they provide assistance in applying for state benefits and warm referrals beyond food. They were required to use a platform called Oasis just to manage and report client data. This was required by Feeding Texas. We cannot, say no to that. So, however, most of the programs at the Houston Food Bank, they use Link to Feed. So CAPS data was a silo in our organization, preventing us from being able to see the different points of interventions of our programs and subsequently analyzing the usage of our services. Additionally, the CAP team was spending 8 hours monthly performing data transformation and cleaning processes to the data that they were extracting from Oasis, just to be able to have their KPIs up to date. So we wanted to, again, come up with 2 strategies to overcome these challenges. First one, we wanted to conduct an overlap analysis so we can identify clients existing in this Oasis data in our neighbor golden record. And then second, we wanted to use DBT to automate all of these processes that CAP was doing on a monthly basis and just give them back that time so they can focus in on analyzing, like the data that they were collecting and making, like better decisions with the data that they are seeing. So again, we wanted to use DBT in this case to be able to automate all of these processes and also provide the CAP team access to these models in our data warehouse, so they don't have to again like just feed these like the dashboard with the new models, and they're just going to have up-to-date metrics. Again, this is an overview of our data pipeline architecture. Real quickly, here just the can represents the activity from our navigators, and the RPP, the activity from our referral partner program. An overview, brief description of the data sets that were involved, just to give you kind of like an idea of the number of rows and attributes that we were dealing with. So in order to perform these overlap analysis, we used the program's global clients PII. We built like different golden records at the level of clients, visits, and households. However, in this case, we used the global clients PII because these contain the different attributes needed to be able to perform the overlap analysis. So here is just how we transformed that CAN and RPP log. So we created 4 different models to transaction in 2-dimension tables. And also by using the configuration feature in DBT, we were able to provide access to those specific tables to the CAP team, protecting the other tables and schemas in our data warehouse. Here is just to kind of like demonstrate how we perform the overlap analysis. We use, again, like 5 different attributes from our clients: name, date of birth, zip code, address, and I think a phone number. And here is just how we were kind of like combining those different attributes to identify as much clients as possible. And the outcome. So we were able to identify 16,000 clients in our neighbor golden record. So now what did we do with that, right? So we create, again, another report, another dashboard. In this case, specifically to serve our CAP team and our partner services team. So for the first time, they were able to see all of these assistance that I'm like state assistance that I'm providing to our neighbors. Like I'm able to see what pantries they are visiting. This has helped them to understand where they need to conduct outreach, because we wanted to do one-stop shop for our neighbors, right? Like whenever they are there just to receive food, they can also get the assistance that they need. And then from the perspective of the partner services team, this has also helped them to understand the areas that they need to conduct more outreach depending on, like the different characteristics of our clients. Another thing I wanted to understand was the pantry usage. So I don't know if you have heard about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. That is something that the Houston Food Bank advocates strongly, because we understand like the changes that this program brings to a household or a family. So we wanted to see like what happens like 6 months prior, like one of our neighbors applied for the first time for SNAP benefits, and like if that pantry visits, if we see any reductions in those visits, right? So what we were able to see is that 48% of the clients that apply for the first time for SNAP benefits, they did not visit one of our pantries. And again, this was telling us that we need to put more efforts in all of this advocacy that we are doing for SNAP benefits, which is next. So in terms of the government relations team, so it is important for us as a Houston Food Bank, whenever our government relations team is going to have this meeting with elected officials, just to offer them all the different output that we are putting as an organization. So bringing the number of the metric of SNAP applications converted into meals is something huge that they can speak about, right? It's something powerful. They can just show them the need in the area and how this is, again, transforming the lives of the neighbors. And yeah, so that is how we are also supporting those advocacy efforts. And I know that we are almost like right now running out of time, but we wanted to kind of like just leave here our contact information. If you have any questions for us, we're going to be also here in case that you wanted to approach us, at the moment. And I really hope that you have enjoyed this session and that you are, continuing about this food banking work, which is amazing. Thank you so much.